So this week, we are going to be working with authentication and authorization. And there's um, basically two lecture demos that you're going to work through. The first one uses Microsoft's identity registration system to register users. And then we basically create user roles and populate that uh, existing table. User roles are part of identity, but there are no creation screens for them. So we're going to create our own, and then we're going to be adding what the roles are. Once we do that, then we will be assigning roles to users when they create accounts. And once we do that, we can use data annotations to limit what different users can access. So the purpose of this first lecture demo is for you guys to get a feel for how all of that works. And so this walks you through the process. And there is an app that you will be downloading. In fact, I think it's in the first hands-on. Let me see, kind of scrolling down. So this is just giving you some background information on Microsoft Identity and, what authentication is, what authorization is. And then here is the app that you are going to download. And it does have a database. And there's actually two databases in this. There is one for Microsoft Identity, which is Application DB Context. And then there is another basically set of tables. It's the same database. Okay. You can only have one database in an app, but we have two different context files. So this file is for all of the identity tables, and this file is for all of the model classes that are part of this project. Okay. And both the member context and application DB context have been, we've added migrations for both. Okay. So here under data, this is where the migrations are for application DB context, which is that whole identity system of Microsoft's. It's basically the registration system. And these migrations are for the model classes that I created. Okay, so what you end up having to do here is basically create the tables for both, and that is what Update Database does. Okay, so that's going to be your first step. And then even though the app is coming with the registration system, nothing has been configured or set up. So these next steps are for configuration of the identity section. And once everything is configured, then we can start creating the roles, assigning roles, adding the authorized attributes. Okay, so this will be walking you through that whole process. And this is one way to set it up. There is another way to set it up, which I think is going to end up being simpler. But it may make some of you nervous because you are going to have to go into the Google Cloud and set this up. And I could not really make a video for this because it's going to be different for everybody. What you see when you go into the cloud is probably going to be different than what I see, just depending on what you've all done with the cloud. And I know some of you have already used Google APIs, so you're going to have things in your cloud dashboard that other people won't. Okay, so we're going to basically create a very plain app, and we're going to focus on adding the Google authentication and then kind of modifying that process so that it automatically assigns a role of user to anybody who authenticates. And then we're really only going to have two roles in this project. We're going to have user and we're going to have admin. And for the administrative login and password, we are going to add that to the seed data. This is a server-side app, so when it runs, you can't see any of that code. It is completely hidden. So we will be putting the credentials for the admin login in our seed data, and we are going to have that automatically run. So this walks you through that whole process. And you can see with our app, we're going to start by adding Microsoft Identity, which is the same exact thing you did in the last app. Okay, so there's nothing really different here until we get to step 3, which is adding in the Google authentication. So this is new, and you're going to have to go to the cloud. And if you use Chrome, then it should use your Google credentials. Because when I launch Chrome, I have to pick my Google account. So it's got, you can see up here, here's my Google account. Okay, so it'll use those credentials to automatically log you in to Google's cloud. And this is going to look a little different for everybody depending on what you've done. I know some of you have done APIs. So, I mean, you've already interacted with the Google Cloud. So this is going to kind of walk you through how to create a project and how to add authentication, Google authentication to it. And keep in mind, these steps could change at any time because I don't control Google's dashboard. Okay, so, but what you're going to do is click the select project button, and you're going to have to create a new project. And keep the name generic because whatever you name that project, when we run the app and they choose Google to log in, that's the name they're going to see on the screen. Okay, so keep it kind of generic. And so here's an example. Now, if you use your NMC email, you may see nmc.edu here, in which case you need to leave it. Don't change it to new organization because it won't let you create if it detects that you are using an education email because they consider that the organization. Okay. Once you have your project, it is going to become active and you're going to have to configure the OAuth information. So what it asks you, you're going to have to select the OAuth consent screen. It'll tell you that Google Auth isn't set up yet. You're going to have to click on Get Started, and then you're going to see a form that you have to fill out. So it's going to have app information, audience information, and contact information. And so I've kind of walked you through what you should fill in for those different things. And Google Cloud is huge. If you ever get lost in the Google dashboard, there is a menu that you can display and you can go back to APIs and services, which is where we need to be. After you activate and configure OAuth, you can actually create your Google authentication credentials. You just have to click on the Create OAuth client command. Once you have a project and you have a set of credentials, you can add additional credentials. And you actually have to do that in real life. You need a set for testing and you need a separate set for the deployed application. Okay, so right now we're just worried with testing. Um, but this is kind of walks you through what you need to do when you're setting that up. This is the screen that you should see. Okay, and then once you hit create, it is going to show you something like this with the client ID and a client secret. I have redacted that information because you can't use mine, you got to use yours. And then from step 2 on, you are in your MVC app and you are setting everything up. So you do have to add that Google authentication information to appsettings.json. And this is where you're going to put it. I would keep this open because then for your client ID and client secret, you can hit copy and then you're going to just paste the information in here. Okay. I highly recommend copying and pasting this into a text document and also downloading a JSON file with that information in it so you have it. Okay. After you modify app settings, go into Program CS, add this to the top, and then you're going to add your services to the middleware pipeline. And these are Google services. Okay, and what you see here, you either need to look for add default identity or add identity, and then you're going to add those Google services after that. Now, what you see is going to depend on what version of .NET. So if you are in .NET 7, you're going to see add identity. But if you're in .NET 9, you're going to see add default identity. Okay? Either way, after identity is added, that is when you add your Google authentication information. Okay, so you can pretty much just walk through this. I mean, I'm telling you what to look for, what you need to add, how to integrate all of this. And what this is going to end up doing. Oh, and I wanted to point out, and I do say it in the directions, at step 3, you need to wait to run a build and run the application until step 5 is complete. Okay? If you try to do it before then, it's not going to work. Okay? This is a process. So steps 3, 4, and 5, you need to complete all of them. Okay. And so what this is going to end up doing is we're going to set up the Google authentication. When the user authenticates, then they will automatically be given a role of user. We are setting up code to do this. Okay? And this is actually the code right here. And so they are going to be added to our database table, and that will take care of anybody logging in and using our system. Okay. For the admin, what we're going to have to do is create some seed data for the administrative username and password. And we're also going to use seed data to add our roles to the table. In the last project, we manually added those roles. In this one, we're going to use a different technique. And you can see these are the roles that we're going to be using. Okay. And then here is where it is going to create them. And if they don't exist, it'll add them. If they do exist, it won't add them. Okay. And I believe we also have code for this. Maybe I took it out. Let's see. Nope, that is where it's done. So there's a lot of different ways we can set this up. Okay, so that is where it is going to create them. Here is the information on the admin account. If the admin account does not exist, it's going to create it. Okay. If the admin doesn't exist, we are going to see if the uh, admin email and password are there, because it is possible that someone with an existing email and password becomes the administrator. Okay, and if that happens, that account already exists, but it does not have the proper role. It needs the role to be admin. Okay, and so that's what this is doing. It's just checking to see if the person is already in our table. Okay, and if they are, then we give them the role of admin. Okay, if they're not in the table, this is how the role gets set up. If they are in the table, this just ensures that that person is the admin. Okay, so so this is in a separate file, okay, actually called seed data. And in the program CS file, this is where we actually run that seed data. And because the seed data is interacting with a database, we do need to use async and await. And our main method, which is basically what the program CS file contains, is not set up for async and await. If you guys remember, the methods that use async and await have to have a task and they have to be set up as asynchronous. And our main method is not. So rather than change our method signature, which would involve changing quite a bit in the program CS file, what we're going to do is basically run the seed data inside a task. Okay, so we're kind of wrapping that seed data initialization inside its own little task. Okay, and so that is what this is doing. So we are creating a task which is going to run in the background. So if you guys remember from the 195, we talked about threading, we talked about asynchronous, we talked about synchronous. Okay, so everything, all programs have a main thread. Creating this separate task has it run in the background. It does not run on the main thread, and that is what we want. Okay, so basically, we are going to have it seed the data in its own separate thread and get a waiter and get result. Those two together, those two little methods, ensure that the seed data completes. Okay, it doesn't allow interruptions on that background thread. It makes sure that this process is completed. Okay. And so this information basically explains what I just told you. And once we set that up, you can actually run the build and then you can run the application. And you should be able to log in with your own Gmail accounts. You're automatically going to get assigned a role of user. And you should also be able to log in with the admin account. So what we don't have is we have not limited access to anything based on roles. And also, we've got some extra links and commands in some of the registration and login pages that we do not want people to use because they didn't actually go through the registration process. When we use Google authentication and the users are added based on that, they aren't given passwords. So we do need to modify some of that code. And so here, what I opted to do was comment things out rather than remove them. And you can either delete or comment out. I comment out because that way in the future, if we decide to change it, the code is still there and I can just remove the comments. So it just keeps the flexibility in the program. But I am telling you which pages to go to and what you need to either delete or comment out. Okay, and we're actually going to get rid of the register link on the nav bar. Okay, and then in this page, you are going to either remove or comment out the links for a forgotten password, the link to register as a new user, the link to resend email. None of those features are going to work. So here is the section that you will be either deleting or commenting out. We are going to allow them to make some changes to the account. So once they're logged in, they can actually click on their account. And there are a couple of the features that are not available because of the way that we are doing this. And so one of them is email. We don't want them changing their email. And the other one is to change the password. They don't have a password, so they can't change it. So that section is going to be commented out. And then if you run the application and you go to log in, the login screen should look different because we removed things that we're not going to use. And then once you're logged in and you click on the account, that screen is going to look a little different because we've removed features that don't work. And then down here, what we're going to do is we're going to add authorization roles. So we have to actually add some pages to our app in order to test this out. So we're going to add 3 different action methods. And as you can see, for the first one, we're limiting to administrators. The second one has no limitations. And the third one, we are limiting to basically anybody who's registered. They have to be authenticated. So administrators and users will be able to see this third page, but if they have not logged in, they aren't going to be able to see it. So for each of those action methods, we need a corresponding view. And I've given you the code to copy paste for that. Then you need to go to the navigation menu and add the links, which I have also given you. And at this point, you can run the application and you can test out the different menu commands. So if you are not logged in, you're going to be able to see the home page, the privacy page, and the everybody page. If you are logged in as, a Google authenticated user, you'll be able to see those 3 pages plus the authenticated user page. And if you are logged in as the administrator, then you get to see everything. Okay, so at this point, all of that should work, and then you can upload the project to GitHub. And if you have any questions about any of this, I did include information on everything, including a little link to a video that kind of walks you through Microsoft Identity. But it is used a little differently than how we do it, but it does kind of give you another viewpoint. At this point, your capstone project, you should be able to complete the first 6 requirements. Okay, and requirement 6 is adding some kind of registration or authentication to your project. So you can do the Google authentication. I've showed you 2 different ways. So you can do the Google authentication, okay, or you can do the registration system. Okay, whichever way makes more sense and is easier for you. Okay, but do keep in mind that you are going to be deploying this. Okay, so keep that in the back of your mind. So if you run into problems, have questions, let me know. And hopefully you find this interesting. I actually think it's kind of fun, but I have a warped sense of fun. So hopefully you guys enjoy working with this.